Hey everyone, it's Brandon. Today I'm going to talk to you about special needs students with hearing loss, understanding cochlear implants. Here's a little background on cochlear implants. Beginning in the late 1800s to the mid 1900s, scientists worked on stimulating the auditory nerve in the ear with electrical impulses in an effort to cure deafness. The first cochlear implant was developed in Australia in the late 1970s, but it was not FDA approved for use in the United States until 1985. The FDA states that candidates must be over 12 months of age, profoundly deaf in both ears, and with hearing not improved through the use of hearing aids in order to receive a cochlear implant. So how do the implants work? A cochlear implant has external and internal components. Externally, there's a microphone, speech processor, and a transmitter which attaches with a magnet to the child's head behind the ear. The transmitter sends radio sound waves to the internal components. Internally, there's an electrode array which is surgically implanted into the cochlea, and a receiver which is beneath the skin behind the ear. There are many steps involved with how a cochlear implant works. The first is that sound is received by the microphone and is converted into an electrical signal. This signal travels down a cord to the speech processor, which codes the information. Then, that coded signal goes back through the cord to the transmitter, which is magnetically attached to the child's head. Next, the signal gets sent to the internal receiver, which sends the signal onto the electrodes implanted in the cochlea. The nerve endings are then stimulated, and the information is finally sent to the brain. It is important to realize that there are thousands of nerve endings in the cochlea, so trying to mimic them with an implant is not realistic. Most sounds are naturally heard as noise, and it requires intensive therapy to make them effective. It is also important to note that once implanted, they cannot be removed. Sound quality. The cochlear implant processor is activated 4 to 6 hours after surgery. This is the first time the individual will hear with the implant, but initially it is only noise. Sound can be heard in the mild to moderate hearing loss range, but perception is still in the moderate to severe range. Each electrode goes through a mapping process to get to the right pitch and sound for each individual, and every one is different. It is vital to understand that implants do not restore hearing to normal. Individuals with cochlear implants may not be able to have conversations on the phone or enjoy music, for example. Speech perception is especially poor with background noise. That is why students with cochlear implants need a quiet environment as much as possible. Here are some statistics involving cochlear implants. Profound hearing loss affects 2 to 3 out of every 1,000 births. More than 400,000 people have received cochlear implants, and the numbers of children increases by about 25% each year. Early implants are critical for language composition. So what affects success? The best outcomes occur with these 4 variables. The first is the age when the hearing deficiency is discovered. This is being improved now through newborn screenings. The second is the age of the individual when they receive the cochlear implant, and by the time the child is 7 or 8, it is too late because the neural pathways have died. The third is the educational placement, and the students adapt better to cochlear implant in a mainstream school. The fourth is the family, and families must be completely dedicated to making the implant a success. So what are the costs involved? Although the surgery is expensive, it is covered by most major health plans. The long-term financial benefits of receiving the implant are clear. Children who receive the implant can save up to $200,000 in special education costs and over $430,000 during their lifetime. The recipients are highly functioning and are no longer considered severely disabled by government standards. The benefits are clear when compared to a profoundly deaf individual who can cost society up to $1 million over their lifetime. This large cost to society has generated a heated debate, with the big question being, should the state have the right to force parents to get implant surgery for their child, considering the long-term savings and the quality of life issues, and considering the children cannot speak for themselves? The window for decision-making is short, and the most critical age for success is the first 3.5 years of the child's life, and implants before 12 months of age have very successful academic results, close to the results of hearing children. Here are some of the implications for the family. As stated earlier, the family needs to be totally committed to the process. The follow-up after surgery is intensive and grueling, with months of therapy and long hours spent with audiologists and speech therapy. There is a large commitment to the part of the family to helping the child develop speech at home. The parents are stressed out to begin with, and they have added pressure of rehabilitation and education decisions. But it has been documented that parental participation in the intervention program has positive results. Stress and expectations. One of the biggest causes of stress for parents is the unrealistic expectations they have after surgery. They expect their child to have hearing close to a child without disabilities and don't comprehend the struggles ahead for them. On top of the stress, they have the added pressure of knowing they are largely responsible for the success of the implant. Education is vital before surgery, so the parents have a clearer understanding of the intervention process, and professionals and support groups can help them. The family stress is significantly decreased if they go into the process with a more realistic expectation. Parental involvement. Knowledgeable and confident parents will experience better results with their children. They just need the training and support to improve their child's skills. The biggest key to success is using language strategies in everyday life. The child with a cochlear implant needs intensive training to turn sounds into language comprehension. They miss a lot of background conversation that helps hearing children learn language. Language skills can be developed at home with reinforcement using parallel talks, which is basically acting as a newscaster for everything that is happening in the child's life, and by always trying to ask open-ended questions. Parents need mentoring and positive reinforcement to bolster their confidence, but should be empowered to act as teachers for the sake of their child. Academic achievement. A 2015 study showed students with implants had academic achievements below children with normal hearing, but not significantly lower, as you can see on the slide. Math typically has the lowest success rate because complex language is used to explain math. Higher parental involvement was shown to produce better scores, and as little as 15 minutes of additional time spent reading at home significantly improved writing development. Overall, children with implants had better speech perception, speech production, and language skills versus children with hearing aids. Results were improved even more for children who received implants early on and who wore the implants throughout the day and night. General education classroom. Advances in early identification, intensive therapy, and new technology are making it more likely that cochlear implant students will be entering mainstream classrooms. It is vital that general education teachers receive specific training to be informed on ways of teaching cochlear implant students. The IEP team consists of parents, general education teachers, hearing itinerant teachers, SLP, audiologists, outside therapists, and if needed, psychologists and occupational and physical therapists. So what makes good classroom management? Good classroom management starts with the setup of the room. A proper setup is critical for the child's success. A well set up room has limited clutter, which can be distracting, is as quiet as possible, with the door always closed, and the seats are arranged in a semicircle whenever possible. The child with the implant should be closest to the teacher with the light source behind them. The teacher should speak slower, not louder, and should avoid talking while walking. When possible, an FM system should be used, where the teacher's voice is amplified through a microphone. The next important part is the delivery of the lessons. When possible, the child should be given an outline of the lesson and the new vocabulary in advance. The teacher needs to be clear when switching between topics. Having a cochlear implant and struggling to understand is exhausting for the children, and they often become tired or distracted. It is important to often call on them by name, summarize what was discussed, and confirm the child's comprehension. It is good practice to ask, "What did you hear?" as opposed to asking, "What did I say?" Frequent checks are vital for a student's education. The teacher should always look for changes in hearing ability and comprehension. Deaf and hard of hearing students struggle with high-frequency sounds, and as a result, they struggle to understand verb tense, pluralization, possession, and contractions. The teacher should frequently confirm comprehension. Socialization. As much as 90% of what an individual learns is from overhearing conversations. Deaf and hard of hearing children miss out on this incidental learning, which means that we should involve them in conversation as much as possible. Socialization also helps build self-esteem, and we can help build this by promoting activities that foster inclusion, have the student present their implants to the class and explain how it works, and use the buddy system. Modifications. Children require additional accommodations and modifications to understand speech in classrooms. See some examples below. Placement with other deaf and hard of hearing students is often a less restrictive option. Note-taking, caption films, and visual aids are necessary accommodations. Training of mainstream teachers is essential. Here are some examples of assistive devices. Here are some examples of related services. The deaf community is a cultural movement. Members of this community consider deafness to be a difference and not a disability. They don't see deafness as something that needs to be cured. Language sets them apart as a cultural group, and their language is sign language. They consider implants offensive and inappropriate. The conflict occurs because 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. A 2014 study showed that parents are concerned that their children will be upset with them for getting implants, and they will be rejected by the deaf community. This cartoon is an example of the strong emotions surrounding the cochlear implant debate. The parents are forced into making an extremely difficult decision, and ultimately, where do the children fit in? The question is, cochlear implants strand these children between two worlds, not quite fitting in with the deaf or the hearing. How can we keep them from being outsiders? As far as community resources in New Jersey, there are a ton. The website noted here is a great resource, and it includes every group and program and their contact information throughout the state of New Jersey. Aside from professional resources, there are camps, youth groups, summer programs, and parent organizations. In summary, children with cochlear implants are able to mainstream successfully. Some modifications and accommodations can help them perform at the level of hearing peers. We need to support the parents with their decision-making early on, because results are significantly improved with early implantation. Technology and early detection are improving, and children with implants in mainstream classrooms will be more common. By far, the most important factor that contributes to the success of a mainstream cochlear implant child is a teacher who is well-trained and knowledgeable, aware of the challenges, sensitive to the child's needs, and is flexible. Thank you very much for watching my presentation. The next 3 slides are the resources used in the process.